You're watching YouTube, the cable access of the 21st century. It's Wednesday, it's 4 p.m. where I am, and it's time to talk about movies and answer your questions. Welcome to Dan's World. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Dan's World. Great start so far. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Always the two questions at the top of my mind, but I want to know what questions are on the top of your mind today. We're going to be getting to viewer questions later on in the show, so if you have any that you want to leave, if you leave them as a super chat, I'll definitely get to them. I'm also trying to get better about going through the comments section in general. And just a request with peace and love. Please, no big ranking questions or what's your favorite in any genre of all time. Not because I think they're bad questions, but just because I don't like to sit here and think for minutes at a time on the stream. I just don't think it makes for a very compelling show. But I am happy to answer any other questions that you have. Let me look at the comments. All right. Yeah, looks like I look and sound great. Look at this. Stephen Nelson, you look and sound great. I was just hoping for at all. So that's even nicer that you think that I look and sound great. So we've got a few things to talk about on the show. I am going to talk about my experience returning to Los Angeles for movie fights. My first time in studio doing movie fights in 6 years. That's why there was not a live stream last week. And I couldn't talk about it on the last live stream because it wasn't even publicly announced that I was going to do it. So I'm going to talk about that experience. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Game of Thrones movie that is reportedly in development. But I want to start off with something that if I weren't out of town in Los Angeles, I absolutely would have covered here on the channel. The BAFTA Awards, which are a big pre-award show for the Academy Awards, were actually the Sunday night preceding movie fights. So that was a travel day for me. It was also a prep day for me. I had to get up early the next morning to do movie fights. So I decided not to do my BAFTA coverage. And of course, that is when one of the major news that unfortunately didn't have anything to do with the BAFTAs, or at least the awards that were handed out, broke. And I haven't really had a chance to talk about it at all on the channel because it's been pretty nonstop since I got back. So I wanted to address this. I know that this has been a week plus, but there's still a discussion and conversation being had about it. And I think that this is something that we need to talk about because it is not a simple issue. Some people have tried to drill it down as if it is a simple issue. I don't necessarily think that it is. And it's also an issue where there were offensive remarks made. There was one particular offensive word said, but it's not the same as it might be in a different case. If you don't know what I'm talking about, very briefly, at the BAFTA Awards a little over a week ago, Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan were on stage. They were presenting an award for Best Visual Effects. In the audience of the BAFTAs, there was a man named John Davidson. John Davidson had his life adapted into a movie called I Swear. John Davidson has Tourette's syndrome, which can manifest in many different ways. He does not call it a disability. He calls it a condition. But basically, it can cause physical tics, verbal tics, and in some cases, and this is the case that's often presented in public, in when people think of Tourette's syndrome, it can cause people to blurt out things, and oftentimes they're very inappropriate things. They're things that are the opposite, the worst possible thing that you could say in any given situation, and that's what happened at the BAFTA Awards. He said a racial slur. I don't think I need to be more specific than that. And the controversy really isn't about that because, again, he has been a subject of multiple documentaries. This film, which was very critically acclaimed in the UK, it actually has not come out here in the United States yet. I want to see it because I've heard from people I know in the UK that it's a very good film. It won a couple of awards. It won the Best British Film Award. It was an upset winner for Best Actor. This is not about him having Tourette's syndrome and saying something that was, that word itself is horrific. And obviously, as we'll get into, I think there should have been greater steps to prepare people, to protect people from that incident. But the controversy is that the BAFTA Awards are not like most of the other award shows that we watch here in the United States or really around the world. They do air on the BBC. They air on things like BritBox here, so you can watch them in the United States, but they don't air live. There's a 2-hour delay between when the awards happen and when they air. And that 2-hour delay allows the BBC if they need to, or if they so desire, to do some editing of the broadcast. And there was editing of the broadcast this year. There was a winner who spoke in support of Palestine, whose statement was removed from the broadcast. And there were other incidents where John Davidson had said some words that were cut out of the broadcast. But the racial slur that was said during Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo's presentation was not cut out of the broadcast. Now, the BBC has said that the engineers that were monitoring the broadcast did not hear it because John Davidson was sat in the audience, and so it wasn't necessarily, on stage into a microphone. There have been people, though. Warner Brothers has said that they alerted the BBC immediately after it happened, and they asked for it to be removed from the broadcast, which sort of pokes holes into the story a little bit of them saying, well, we didn't hear it in the truck. Even if you didn't hear it in the truck, there have been people that have come forward and said, well, we brought it to your attention, and still there was a 2-hour delay, and still it aired. And that's where the controversy is, because there was a lack of protection. I mean, there were multiple failures here as far as failing to protect the people that were on stage, failing to protect the people in the audience, failing to protect the people at home, and failing to protect, and I think this is critical too, failing to protect John Davidson, because this is a condition that he has. This was not an act of will on his part. And I'll reference a statement that he made where he addresses how mortified he is that is what came out of his mouth in that moment because of his condition. And when I say that it was a failure to protect him, it kind of loops back to what I was saying about some people have tried to make this a very simple thing. There was a comment made by Jamie Foxx on social media as this was sort of being passed around, where he said, no, he meant that, and he put his own expletive in there. There were some people saying like, well, he wouldn't say that if he wasn't actually racist, which again, if you listen to what he says about Tourette syndrome, if you listen to what the advocacy groups say about Tourette syndrome, people that have had it, people that actually, to be frank, know what they're talking about, they'll say that's not how it works. It's not something where you blurt out your inner thoughts. That's not what the condition is. And so it was a failure of protection for him as well. So I want to talk a little bit about it. First of all, I want to talk about John Davidson. He gave a statement to the Hollywood Reporter after it, and I think it's important to spotlight his words here. He said, quote, Tourette's can feel spiteful and searches out the most upsetting tic for me personally and for those around me. What you hear me shouting is literally the last thing in the world I believe. It's the opposite of what I believe. The most offensive word that I ticked at the ceremony, for example, is a word I would never use and would completely condemn if I did not have Tourette's. Studio Canal were working closely with BAFTA, and BAFTA had made us all aware that any swearing would be edited out of the broadcast. I've made 4 documentaries with the BBC in the past and feel that they should have been aware of what to expect from Tourette's and worked harder to prevent anything that I said, which after all was some 40 rows back from stage, from being included in the broadcast. As I reflect on the auditorium, I remember there was a microphone just in front of me, and with hindsight, I have to question whether this was wise, so close to where I was seated, knowing that I would tick. I had an expectation that the BBC would physically control the sound at the awards on Sunday. I was so far from the stage, from the lack of response from the early presenters to my tics, and with no one turning around to look at me, I assumed, like everyone else, that I could not be heard on the stage. The only time I became aware that my tic had reached the stage was when Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan appeared to look up from their role as presenters, and soon after that, I decided to leave the auditorium. And that was something that was reported widely. He did leave. He was not asked to leave. He did leave the auditorium shortly after this incident and watch the rest of the ceremony from a separate room. Now, Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan have really spoken publicly on this. Delroy Lindo did tell, I believe it was Variety after the show, that he did think it was a failure to protect them as presenters. And he also said that he wished that someone at BAFTA had spoken to them personally afterwards, had been more forthcoming after the fact, after their failure before the fact to do so. But I also want to spotlight some of what was said from some of the co-stars of Sinners who have been asked about this and have spoken out, and I think have made some very good points. Wunmi Mosaku, who won at the BAFTAs and is nominated for an Academy Award, was asked about this at the Actor Awards this past weekend. Entertainment Tonight asked her about it, and she said, quote, partially, I have no hard feelings toward John Davidson at all. He has a condition. I feel like BAFTA has a lot of lessons to learn. It felt exploitative and performative to have someone there without the full protection of everyone, including him and anyone in that audience. There were children in the audience. The BBC is a whole other thing. That's the bit that really kind of kept me awake at night and brought tears to my eyes. I can't understand it, and I'm not sure I could forgive it. And then Jamie Lawson, who was also in the film, was asked by THR and said, quote, institutionally, we still don't understand what inclusion means. Just because you invite someone into a place, but you don't provide the necessary resources to keep them and everyone else in that room safe, by them being there, that's not inclusivity, that's exploitation. That man's disability got exploited that night, and it led to multiple offenses. That's the BAFTA's fault. And then the BBC, to air what they aired, is careless and not like some haphazard accident. A real lack of care was exercised for those two black men. And we know the BBC knows how to take care of what they care about because they censored a bunch of other words. You want to celebrate our art, but you won't protect us. Now, like I said, this is both a complicated, well, this is a complicated situation, but I think the thing that's very simple about this is that the people to blame here squarely are the BAFTAs, and even more so the BBC, as all of those who commented on this situation have said. As far as, regarding what you need to do in the room with John Davidson present, I think that is a very, at times perhaps difficult or uncomfortable, or I use this word often, again, complicated discussion, but it was obviously one that wasn't had because on one hand, you want him to be there to celebrate this story, the story of his life, and in an acclaimed film. This is a big moment for him personally, and he's a well-known advocate in the United Kingdom, and you don't want to exclude him out of fear of what might happen. But at the same time, you do have to have those discussions of this is the reality of the situation. What steps need to be taken to make sure that the people that are there, even if they're aware of his condition, are protected? Because, that is still a traumatic thing, especially for the black members in that audience, for Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo on stage. That is a traumatic thing, even if you understand what's happening behind it. It still doesn't mitigate the shock of that. And so I'm not saying I know the answer, but it was obvious that a much more complex discussion needed to be had with John Davidson, I think, included, with the BAFTAs, with the presenters, with the people in that room, so that everybody was on the same page and there was a plan of action. There was obviously no plan of action. And to go into this situation with no plan of action is absolutely ludicrous. You must have a plan of action in place. You should not even be in a position where somebody could miss something like that, because they should have somebody whose only job it is to listen for that and to say, wait a minute, okay, this is something we need to address. Putting aside the fact that there are people that disputed that they missed it, they're saying that there's no way they couldn't have known because it was brought up by them. And that's where you get to the BBC's fault. The fact that it was allowed to slip through a 2-hour barrier, I'm sorry, there is no way. You cannot hide behind this excuse of, well, we didn't hear it at the time. We didn't hear it in the truck. I believe the rep from Warner Brothers, and I can promise you there's no way that Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan didn't say something to someone. There is no way that somebody in the audience didn't say something to someone. It is either a willful, and if it was willful, that is I don't even have a word for it. If the BBC knew that it was there and let it go through, that was either a willful act or a complete abdication of their responsibility in that situation, especially, as was pointed out in the other comments, because they did edit other things that went out, things that did not even have to do with John Davidson and Tourette's syndrome. So this needs to be something. This can't be one of those things that gets dropped, by next week. Oh, well, everybody forgets about it. There needs to be accountability for this, because this was a failure institutionally. This was not a personal failure on John Davidson's part. This was an institutional failure where there should have been absolute firewalls and absolute regulations in place to protect everyone. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend. I'm not going to say, well, here's what they should have done regarding him being in the room, not being in the. Again, that is a very complicated question, but it was obvious, and I agree with the idea of saying, well, you can say you're inclusive and that you included John Davidson, but obviously you didn't do any of the work. You did none of the work that needed to be done to get the credit for saying, look at how we included him. Isn't this great that we included this person who has this condition that he was worried that it was going to be disruptive. You can do that if you do the work, but they didn't do the work. So this is something that I think needs to be followed up on, something that needs to be there need to be people, not just like, oh, the BBC and the BAFTAs apologized. There need to be people held accountable for this, and they need to face consequences for this, because what should have been a night of celebration, we should have been coming out talking about this movie, I swear, and John Davidson's story in a positive way, and the movie upsetting in the Best Actor race in a positive way, and the other winners at the awards ceremony in a positive way. Alan Cumming, who was the host of the show, I believe, late this weekend, about a week afterwards, on social media, said as much. He said, I'm sorry that this distracted from what should have been a night of celebration. And he said that he did not like the fact that BBC let this through, and also censored other things. Many people found his apology on the night to be lackluster. He has certainly tried to take personal accountability, whether you think that's too late or not. But Alan Cumming is not accountable. It's not his thing to take accountability for. It's the BBC and the BAFTAs. That's who needs to take accountability. And it's a really unfortunate situation. It's unfortunate, obviously, for Michael B. Jordan, for Delroy Lindo, for the people in the room who were subject to that language. It's unfortunate for John Davidson, who, now there are people who are blaming him. He's being mocked. I know there's been talk about a Saturday Night Live sketch where they were trying to make light of it and saying that other celebrities who say offensive things can hide behind having Tourette's syndrome. So it's unfortunate for him, and it's just an absolute failure. I mean, I don't, there are these BAFTAs, the BBC, they've been around forever. And you think when these institutions that have been around forever, they know how to handle these things, or they should have people that know how to handle these things. And this just goes to show you that whoever was in charge of this absolutely bungled it, and there needs to be accountability. So, I would have covered this at the time, but like I said, it has been kind of a crazy week. Honestly, I've been going nonstop since the holidays for both professional and personal reasons. So I'm a little bit delayed in talking about that, but I wanted to talk about it because I think it was important, first of all, to spotlight what John Davidson said, what some of the co-stars from Center said, because I agree with everything that they say. And also just to kind of, I'll pile on to the BBC. I don't care, because they deserve it. They deserve the pile-on. The BAFTAs deserve the pile-on institutionally, and hopefully people will keep pursuing this until they actually get some answers. Okay, so that's my thought. Those are my thoughts on the BAFTAs. Let's move on to something happier, something a little bit more fun to talk about, and that is movie fights. So as you know by now, I made my return to Screen Junkies last week for the first time in many years, 6 years, to do movie fights. It was me, Spencer Gilbert, Mike Carlson, Hal Rudnick was the host. Emma Carlson was in the fact-checking chair. I won't give away the results. Hopefully nobody in the comment has sent in a super chat that does either. So just be careful, because there may be spoilers in the comments. If you haven't seen it, I won't say who won or who lost. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how that came to be. There was a point, I don't know if it was on this live stream or a Patreon live stream, where someone talked about movie fights, and I said, well, Screen Junkies called out of the blue and said, will you fly to LA and be on movie fights? I would absolutely do it. When I got that question, I had already been contacted. So I got an email while I was at Sundance. So there wasn't a whole lot of lead time to it. I got an email when I was at Sundance from the folks over at Fandom, who said, hey, we're going to do a movie fight. There'd been kind of a false start on that a couple different times, because they and to Fandom's credit, they flew me out there. They put me up in a hotel for a couple nights. I mean, they treated me like an actual guest, VIP, and I appreciate that, because that certainly helped me to say yes, to not have to worry about the expense of travel and all that. But they said, we're going to bring back movie fights. Do you want to come back? We want you back for the first show. I was honored. I was flattered that they were so willing to go to such extremes to bring me back for that first episode. And I was happy that I was able to do it. So yeah, I flew out to LA. We did the show on Monday morning. It came out Monday afternoon, and it was so much fun. It really did. I was worried a little bit that in 6 years that I may have lost my zest for it, or passion, or maybe I wouldn't be able to think as quickly on my feet as I used to be able to. Anytime you go back to doing something that you used to be good at, and I think I can maintain kind of a humble forefront, a humble nature here, and admit that I was good at doing movie fights. You worry, like, is this going to be a disappointment? But it really didn't feel like any time had passed at all. It was just like doing the show that I always love to do. I had so much fun doing it. I think that they chose some really good questions. I love that Mike and Spencer were there because they have energies. Spencer and I, especially on that show, I think always have a very good complementary style of debate. We can really go after each other, but not in an angry way. And Mike is just the king of the wild card argument, where, because as always happens on movie fights, you get everybody's answers a little bit before the show so you can kind of prep. And seeing his answers on paper, you're like, what is he talking about? And then you hear him give the arguments, and you might not agree with them, but they're great. I love his energy. Hal, of course, an incredible host. Hal and I started at Screen Junkies at the same time. My first job at Screen Junkies was editing the first episode of the Screen Junkies show with Hal. So he and I've always felt, have shared kind of a bond because we started at the exact same time, and we were on the same ride from that point on. And we're there for the growth that we experienced over the next several years, and the emergence of everything else that we did. So it was so much fun. And they're going to do it monthly. So I'm told. I know that I heard some names being floated around for future episodes that I think people will be really excited about. From what I've heard, it's not going to be about, oh, we're bringing back the format, but we're going to stick in a bunch of people that are new or that nobody's heard of. As far as I know, the approach to it is going to be, we are doing it once a month, and we want to bring back the favorites. We want to bring back the people that that people want to see, that they remember from the show. I don't know if I'll get another chance to do it. It all depends on timing. I completely understand that fandom cannot just fly me out there again. That is a huge expense on their part. And like I said, I thank them for doing that and for allowing me that opportunity and that experience. But I will be a loyal viewer still when it comes out, and from what I saw of comments and the fact that it's done pretty well view-wise on the Screen Junkies channel, and you can see it right now over on Screen Junkies, it seems like people appreciated that it was back. They liked seeing it back, and it was fun to be back. I had a blast, and it really was. And I've talked about this on the channel. This has not been the best beginning of the year for me. And even with Sundance and everything else, it's been an incredibly hectic, busy time of year for me, and a stressful beginning of the year for me. And to have the opportunity to go to see my friends, I stayed a few days afterwards and caught up with several friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. And it was good for me to be able to do that. It's always interesting when I'm out of town and things like the Paramount Warner Brothers thing breaks. And I have to run back to my hotel and do that real quick. That's part of running a YouTube channel and being on the road. You're never really off the clock, but it was so much fun. And yeah, I don't know. It felt like kind of just the scene where Aragorn, pulls out the sword, and it's like, yes, it's all coming back to me now. I had a great time, and it was silly as it should be. There were fights that were very serious, as they should be. I thought that it was a great balance. And if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go check it out. But it was such a good time. And if you have any other questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them in the chat. But it was so much fun. And I'm so happy that they're doing it more often now, that they're bringing it back, because even if I'm not on it, I just like that there's so many people, and I'm sure it's many of you watching, that have asked me over the years, when is Movie Fights coming back? And I've always been sad to say that I don't have any control over it, over that, because it was theirs to do with as they please. I'm so happy they decided to bring it back, and I had a great time. So before we get to your questions, one last quick thing, and this was an announcement that came out yesterday. Reportedly, there is a Game of Thrones movie in the works at Warner Brothers, although everything at Warner Brothers, I think, right now is very up in the air with the pending acquisition by Paramount Skydance. But Beau Willimon, who was one of the writers on Andor, he was also a key writer on House of Cards, is reportedly writing a movie based on Aegon's conquest, which is the story of the Targaryens taking over Westeros, and there'll be a lot of dragons in that movie. Generally, when people have talked about a Game of Thrones movie, the two things, if you're not going to do some forward-looking story that people have talked about, are Aegon's conquest and Robert's Rebellion, which is Robert Baratheon unseating the Targaryens and taking the Iron Throne. I think they both, by the way, make fantastic films. But this, to me, is exciting. I've been very skeptical on Game of Thrones spinoff stuff, and yeah, I'm halfway through Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I was very blah on that, and I've actually enjoyed it very much from what I've seen so far. So if they can turn House of the Dragon around in this third season and get that back up to the level of quality we saw in season one, if some of the other shows can match what we've seen with the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, then maybe Game of Thrones can kind of recover a little bit. Certainly a lot of the luster has been lost from that brand, but with that talent attached to it, and again, that is one of the key stories in the history of Westeros. The sources in the reporting have said that the plan is to make it a Dune level movie. I mean, we're talking big epic thing, not something that looks like it belongs on TV. You have real potential there, because that's the kind of story I think that could bring in fans of the show as they exist. Maybe people that didn't watch the show that just like epic movies. I'm sure that there were a lot of people that went to see Dune that weren't Dune fans, but they just liked the look of the movie. If you can make it suitably epic, this I think could be something very exciting. I'm not going to count chickens before they hatch. I certainly have done it before, or dragons, if you will, before they hatch. But this was to hear that this was the project they were working on. Again, it was one of the two stories that I think a lot of fans of the show and of the novels would potentially be excited to hear about as a feature adaptation. The fact that this is reportedly what's being worked on, and you have Beau Willimon there, of course, Andor, a big hit. Nothing that anyone writes is perfect, but I think that there's a track record there that I think people should be excited about. This excites me. And again, I think it's partially because Night of the Seven Kingdoms, from what I've seen so far, has reminded me that there is still some life left in Game of Thrones. So that's exciting to me. All right. So we talked about the BAFTAs. We talked about movie fights. We talked a little bit about Game of Thrones. I'm going to get to your questions next, but we have some sponsors this week, which is always good for the channel. And I appreciate you watching these messages, and also check out the stuff, because I don't promote anything here on the channel that I don't use. And I like both of these very much. So thank you to the sponsors for this show. I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll get to your questions. This episode is brought to you by Mando. It's March, which means it's a good time to get a little spring cleaning done, and why not start with your bathroom? If you have a drawer cluttered with a bunch of half-used deodorants and body washes that just don't work, toss them out and replace it all with Mando. Mando is a whole body deodorant that's proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. I use Mando stick deodorant, I use their spray deodorant, I use Mando body wash in the shower, and I can honestly say that since I've switched to Mando, I don't ever worry about whether or not I smell good. Regardless of how hot it is, regardless of how much I'm sweating or how much I'm moving around, it's reliable, I can trust it, and it's clinically proven to control odor better than my old brand, Old Spice. If you want to give Mando a try, you can find it on the shelf at retailers like Walmart and Target, but for the best deals, head to their website over at shopmando.com. Some men mask their BO with sense. Mando men get the job done right. Don't mask it, Mando it. Available in retailers near you, or head to shopmando.com, because for a limited time, new customers get 20% off site-wide with my exclusive code. Use code DAN. That's DAN at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide. SHOPMANDO.com. Please support the show and tell them that I sent you. Mando's got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness. This episode is brought to you by Harry's. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a little bit cleaner cut today. And that's because I just used my new razor from Harry's. Now, I've got to be honest, I've been out of the razor market for years, and that's because I got sick of all the dull, disposable stuff that you would buy in the store. It'd either take forever to shave, or I would try to get it done in a reasonable amount of time and end up cutting my face. It was just easier to run some clippers over my beard and be done with it, but I'm kind of turning into Gandalf or Dandolf the White a little bit. It's good to keep the beard shaved, and that's why I'm glad I have my new Harry's Plus razor, which has an advanced pivoting system that reaches every corner of your face and also has refined blade tech featuring German engineered blades for a closer, smoother shave. Every cartridge also includes a lubricating strip with aloe and vitamin E to calm your skin while you shave, and it even has a neat little edge blade on the back for sideburns and those tough to reach spots. I was actually able to shave in a reasonable amount of time today without any nicks or cuts, and I was happy with how easy it was too. Plus, Harry's offers a great experience at an even better price because they don't outsource anything, they keep costs low, and their risk-free trial means that you really have no reason not to give them a try. For a limited time, fans of the show can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/Murrell. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/Murrell to claim this offer, and after you purchase, be sure to tell them that I sent you. That's harrys.com/Murrell, Murrell, to get the Harry's Plus trial set for just $10. All right. Thank you to Mando and to Harry's for sponsoring this episode. And let's get to your questions now. And we'll start with some of the super chats that have come in. And the first one is from Andy McLean, who says, if you had to watch one 5 times back to back, would you watch Gotti, Cats, or War of the Worlds? Ooh, that is a tough one. I'd probably go with Cats because there's no part of either Gotti or War of the Worlds that I enjoy. And some of the music in Cats, I mean, there are still some good songs in Cats that I enjoy. So it's probably the longest of the 5 or of the 3, but I think I'd probably choose Cats because I think that would be the most tolerable. There would be some highlights for me. Freakstomp95 says, now that you're off the road, will we get more constant movie or TV reviews? I noticed you didn't review Send Help or Goat at all, maybe a monthly roundup. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've spent, and I think I've said this before, I totaled it up. I've spent more days away from home this year since Christmas than I have spent at home. And it is tougher to make stuff on the road because I'm traveling. Usually if I'm away, I'm doing other stuff. But there will be definitely more movie reviews because I'm able to be here and go to movies and I'm not doing other stuff. I'm not in Utah or traveling to Los Angeles. So I will review more movies. I actually have. So tomorrow I'm planning to see both The Bride and Hoppers and get you a review for both of those probably on Friday if I can. Now, you never know. Stuff can get in the way sometimes, but definitely at least one of those on Friday. So you should get a review for both of the big movies that are coming out this week. I drove to Kansas City yesterday, which I've talked about. That's 3 hours there, 3 hours back. But I drove to Kansas City yesterday to make sure that I could see Project Hail Mary early. And you'll have a review for Project Hail Mary next week. And yes, so when I'm home, it's a lot easier to make things more consistently. When I'm traveling, it's a lot more difficult. And a lot of the stuff I've been doing this year has been stuff that is completely unrelated to work, but stuff that needs my full attention and full focus. So I do the best I can, but there is still a balance in my life that I want to maintain. But yes, as things stabilize, you should be getting more movie reviews. TV, I'm not sure. There's just so much time involved with watching a whole series or a whole show, but I do plan to watch One Piece. I do plan to watch Daredevil. So, I pick and choose what I review on the TV side, but things hopefully will from after this weekend, hopefully things will have slowed down for me a lot more than they have been. Emir Hades 3211 says, hey, Dan, it was awesome seeing you on Movie Fights again. What have you learned about films from your colleagues, Joe Starr and Spencer Gilbert? I mean, they both are such movie fans in completely different ways than I am. Joe just has this way of looking at things sometimes. Sometimes you'll ask him about this movie he loves, like Transformers the movie, the 80s one, or stuff that maybe I loved when I was a kid that I don't like as much. And he has such an enthusiasm and an energy. And he's like, yeah, it's terrible, but this is what I love about it. It's so stupid, but it's so great. And I love his optimism and he just unapologetically loves the things that he loves. And it sort of breaks down my walls a little bit to not be as afraid to say, even if this movie is quote unquote bad, I can still say that I love it because he kind of inspires me in that way. Spencer, I would say, has such an analytical mind for movies, again, in a different way than I do. I'm looking at themes and stuff like that, and Spencer does that as well, but he will pick up on these little details, these small things that completely passed me by, and then he'll be able to turn that into one of the funniest jokes that you've ever read. That's why he's such a great writer for Honest Trailers. That's why I always said, even when I was there, Spencer's the most important person to Screen Junkies, because he's the one he's the keeper of the keys when it comes to that. He's the magic man, especially with Honest Trailers. So yeah, for Joe, it's that just sort of boundless enthusiasm and just unapologetically loving what you love. And for Spencer, it's that ability to just analyze details and find the connections there and turn that into humor. That, especially as a writer on Honest Trailers, he sort of helped me retrain how to look at movies in that way. And I've learned a lot from both of them, and they're both great guys too. Low Key 4 says, hey Dan, Cosmere fan here, finally getting movies for Mistborn and a show for Stormlight. Try the audiobooks and evangelize the Cosmere. It may stick. Low Key 4, thank you so much for sending that comment. I have to be honest, I don't understand a single thing that you wrote. And that's on me. I don't know what any of that is. I'm so sorry. But I'll look into it. How about that? I'll look into it. Tom Hiffman says, Dan, we love the physical media video. Would you consider doing one focused on the Criterion Collection, plus a live stream during the next sale showing your pickups and thought process? Loving the live streams. I don't know if I would do a Criterion specific live stream. I mean, they were all included in the physical media video. I did actually just pick up 3 new Criterion discs because I had a gift card that I got for Christmas. And so I picked up the new 4K of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I picked up the new 4K of Network, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And then I picked up the Criterion edition of Anora, which I was waiting to get after the Oscars last year. I was waiting for the next sale. I did something, though, with my email notifications, and I don't know what I did because I'm still a Criterion subscriber. I have the Criterion channel. For some reason, I don't get the emails when the flash sales are happening anymore. So I don't find out about them till they're over. So I got to figure out what I did. I must have unsubscribed to something, which is weird because Criterion is one of the people that I'm not going to unsubscribe to. But I got to get back on the list because I've missed 2 or 3 flash sales because my email notification didn't come through. So I got to figure that out. Would I do a sale showing my pickups? Maybe. But again, that's not a terrible idea, but I don't know how interesting it would be. But yeah, I'll give it a shot. And thank you, by the way. That's a very nice super chat. I appreciate that. INAKIC says, hi Dan, what's your opinion of the Masters of the Universe trailer? As a fellow 80s child, love your work and love movie fights last week. Thank you very much. Yeah, I haven't really talked about the Masters of the Universe trailer. To me, it looked like the perfect kind of bottling of the energy of the animated show. I mean, I looked at that and I was like, yep. I mean, I don't know if the movie's going to be good or bad, but that is Masters of the Universe, specifically the cartoon. It looks like they're really leaning into that energy and into that look, which I think is smart. So as somebody who, I mean, Masters of the Universe, and I've said this before, He-Man was kind of like my first thing. It was like my first fandom was He-Man. It was the first thing I remember loving in my life was Masters of the Universe and having He-Man and Battle Cat and Castle Grayskull and Skeletor and Evil-Lyn. And I was jealous of my friend who had Snake Mountain because Snake Mountain looked so cool. And I could only have Castle Grayskull, which is probably for the best. And Skeletor's cat was like velvety. It had like a velvet cover. Anyway, I could go on. It looked like it was really going for people of my age who love that stuff. So I'm excited about it. It could be terrible, but I'm excited about it. A Real Rush Bagat Treaty, okay, says top 10 70s horror movies set on July 4th that aren't Jaws, and what 90s born actors with an X in their name would you recast each lead role with? Just kidding. Favorite or least favorite, the Pit character. Ooh, that's a great one. The Pit is the one show I talk about the fact I don't do a lot of TV reviews. The only show that I watch religiously, either the night that it comes out or the next day right now, is The Pit, because it's so addictive. The whole real-time format, hour by hour thing, they always know right where to end an episode to get you wanting to see the next one. Favorite and least favorite Pit character. I mean, Dr. Robbie is a basic answer. I like, I'm a fan of Mel, although I think that they've really underused her character this season. And I like, I mean, see, I can only remember his derogatory nickname, Huckleberry. His actual name escapes me, but I actually like him a lot because we saw him at the beginning of the last season where he was so hapless and all those terrible things were happening to him. And I like that this season he's got more confidence and you can see him growing. It's like you can see, like, oh, he's going to be a really good doctor. So I like him a lot. Least favorite, I mean, Ogilvy, the new resident this season, is just like, dude. I mean, even though I know you're not supposed to like him, I'm just like, God, this guy sucks. I hate this guy so much. I know that's the intention, but he still sucks. And then I don't know what's going on with Dr. Santos. I like the actor who plays her, but I don't know what's up with her. It's come on. Dr. Al-Hashimi, I'm on the fence about. I think I might love her, or I don't know. I think the show wants me to be on the fence about her. All right. Henry Robbins 625 says, loved your thoughts on the Living Daylights the other week. Any update on when the James Bond ranking video might be coming? Thanks for all you do. Yeah, that was on the docket for the beginning of this year. And it got completely derailed. I've been considering getting it done and just holding it until the new James Bond is announced. It's sort of like, in case of emergency, break glass. But I'd have to get that done in time before that. And I would imagine that announcement's going to come in not too long. So I got to get on it. So I should probably start doing it after the Oscars, because that would make it a year since I started watching the movies. And I think a year is probably enough of a window. So hopefully this year, but I'm thinking about timing it to for SEO purposes, to the announcement of the new James Bond, whenever that is. Damian Fenton 3880 says, your thoughts on spoiler etiquette for older films and TV. A major podcast spoiled Twin Peaks for me. Although it's old, the spoiler is unfair to younger viewers who can't be expected to have seen everything. That's tough, because I do think that there is a certain level of exposure to spoilers for older stuff that, you can't just talk around everything, or else it's going to be hard to talk about older movies and older shows. I think you should, at a minimum, say, if you haven't seen X, Twin Peaks, or whatever, skip ahead a little bit because I'm going to talk about it. I don't think that you should just blurt it out. But I also am not of the opinion that you should just avoid spoilers completely, because you should have license to be able to talk openly about old stuff. So I would say a verbal warning with adequate time for somebody to avoid the spoiler if they wish is good. It's good form. I'd say that's good form. Peter Parker SL says, off topic. There's really no topics on this show, so don't worry about it. In dishonor of Scream 7, rank these comedy screams: Wilhelm, Goofy, and Tomcat. Well, I'm guessing, Wilhelm is, of course, the famous, Star Wars scream. Goofy, I assume you're talking about the ooh, hoo, 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 hoo thing. And then Tomcat, I'm guessing, is just like the cat sound. I would say comedy. You're specifying comedy. So I would rank them this way. In third place, Wilhelm, only because it's so overused. It used to be funny when somebody would use it, and then everybody started using it, and it's been overused. So I would say Wilhelm makes me laugh the least when I hear it. Then Goofy. The Goofy scream, I think, is hilarious. It's not overused, and I think it's just a really good piece of voice acting. But for me, like when I watch Young Frankenstein, which is one of my favorite comedies, I think it's when he's throwing the darts. He throws the darts off screen, and you just hear a cat, and I think it's Mel Brooks. Just like the sound of like something happening off screen, and you just hear a cat scream. That to me just makes me laugh. So I would go Cat, Goofy, Wilhelm, and Hollywood really has only itself to blame for Wilhelm being in last place. Dylan Fitzsimmons says, what are some of your favorite books that you'd recommend? Oh, Catch 22 has always been my go-to. I read Catch 22 in high school, and I loved it. It's such a funny book, and I used to say that I wish it'd get adapted for a movie, and I think they've done, like, a miniseries. There was a movie in the '70s, but uh, nothing has really been able to match the book. I love Catch 22. The book I've read the most in my life is Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, because I read that for the first time when I was 10 or 11 years old. I still have that copy. It's literally falling apart. I've probably read it 8 or 9 times all the way through, maybe more in my lifetime. And we're talking 33 years now, 32, 33 years. So that always goes up as one of my favorites. Let's see. I don't want to. I haven't read as many books as I should have read. So I have tougher recall. I'm more of a movies guy. That might shock you. Catch 22 is the one that always comes to mind first, and then Jurassic Park has always been one of my favorites. And I'm sure there are other great books I've read that I just can't think of. I'm not that uncultured, but I am a little more uncultured than you might think. Dylan Fitzsimmons says, "What is your go-to snack?" Depends on the mood. I have some little fun size chocolates still left from Halloween. If I just want a bite, it's because due to shrinkflation, the fun size Snicker bar has gone from this size to like literally one bite of Snickers. So if I just want a bite, I still have some of those in the bag. I'll grab one of those. I try not to snack too much. I fail often, but I try not to snack too much. Um, if it's sort of like I haven't eaten yet that day, but it's like 2 or 3 hours before I'm going to eat, then I'll sit down and eat some like Ritz or Triscuits or stuff or something like that. I like that. Um, but yeah, I try not to do a whole lot of snacking because generally I don't make the best choices. I like candy, and I have to actively keep it out of the house, or I'm just going to eat it. Dylan Fitzsimmons says, "Hey, Dan, I was at the Academy Museum last week and got to see the Jaws exhibition, and it was incredible. Have you gotten a chance to see it yet?" Well, if you were at the Academy Museum last week, we might have been there at the same time because I was also at the Academy Museum last week. And yes, I did see the Jaws exhibit. It was incredible. I should have loaded some of the video. I took so much video while I was there. I'm thinking about doing just its own video for the channel that nobody will watch, but it'll just be fun for me. I loved it. I was in my element. If you don't know, right now at the Academy Museum in Los Angeles, which I hadn't been to yet, it was my first time going, and I was excited just to go. There is a Jaws exhibition, rooms and rooms full of Jaws stuff. They rebuilt the back of the Orca, and it has like the actual chair that Quint was sitting in when he was fishing. It's got the actual letters that were on the ship, the actual yellow barrels. One of my favorite things was they had Verna Fields' Moviola machine, the actual editing machine that she edited Jaws on is in the exhibition. It's under glass, but you can stand there and be like, if you're standing in front of it, you're like, I'm standing exactly where Verna Fields stood while she was editing Jaws. They have a lot of props and scripts. It was so much fun, and obviously, it's my favorite movie. So it was extra fun for me. So I was so I think if you remember last year on my Oscars video, they announced that the Jaws exhibition was going to happen, and I was like, "Oh, what?" And I wanted to go to it since it opened. I loved it so much; it was so great. And the Academy Museum is awesome. I mean, I know there's stuff that's there all the time, but they have a great Bong Joon-ho exhibit right now. They've got one that's just Ponyo, the Studio Ghibli film, that's just that one with a bunch of original cells and animation. There was a cyberpunk one. There was one that was devoted to sort of sci-fi and superhero stuff. A lot of Marvel stuff was on display, and then some of the permanent display stuff, Oscars, different Academy Awards from over the years. Oh, I was in heaven. So maybe we were there at the same time. I was there last Monday. I don't know what day you were there, but I finished movie fights and I walked down the street to the Academy Museum. It's the first thing I did. Stay1234-Y3N says, "Thank you for talking about sensitive subjects with nuance. I appreciate that. I do my best. And I also try to make sure, I don't necessarily think I have all the answers, but I do try to discuss things. And that's why I wanted to include John Davidson's comments and also the comments from, actual co-stars of Sinners. I didn't want it to just be, what white guy thinks about it. It's like, let's also highlight what people who are more directly involved think about it. I do my best. So thank you. I appreciate it. That's what I aspire to do. Kimo Geo says, love seeing you on Movie Fights again. One of my personal favorites you guys did at Screen Junkies was the annual awards video. Any fond memories of making those? Well, we had two that we did every year. There were the Screenies and the Grouchies. The Screenies were the one that we did at the end of the year. And I would say it was always a lot of fun sitting in the writer's room and just brainstorming category ideas. And I do that here on the channel as well, except it's just me, so I don't really get to brainstorm with anyone but myself. But it was always fun to just sit and think of silly things to do, or if we had legacy categories, to be like, well, who's going to win this year? I would say the process of writing it was always so much fun. And then in the later years, I would also direct Hal on set. So, you know, pitching lines back and forth with him and trying to figure that out. That was always a lot of fun. The Grouchies were the ones that we did after the Oscars. So we would all get together and watch the Academy Awards. And then right after the show was done, which is about 8:30 Pacific time, we would brainstorm what we wanted to talk about. We'd give our own little mini awards. So that was fun, but it was always a lot of work because we were on a very compressed timeline. We wouldn't start shooting till usually 11:30, 12 o'clock. And then as the editor, that meant that I was there till 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to get it done and out as soon as we could get it out. So that was always kind of its own thing. And really, for me, the fun was just watching the Academy Awards again with this group of friends and pitching funny stuff and jokes during the show. But that was always a lot more stressful and a lot more work and it was an all-nighter for me. And yeah, that was difficult. But in both cases, it was really the process of just joking around and coming up with the ideas for that. Henry Robbins 625 says, as a Simpsons fan, did you ever get into Futurama? Apart from the newer seasons, I think both shows equal one another in quality. You know, I never did. I don't know why. I've heard really good things about Futurama, but I never got into it. Maybe someday, but no, I didn't. I've never really gotten into any Matt Groening show except for The Simpsons. Golden Eagle 92 says, with Scream 7 out, how would you rank the films? I think 7 is worst. Still had a great time opening night. To movie fights king, like riding a bike. It was a little bit like riding a bike. How would I rank the Scream films? I mean, definitively, I would have to sit down and really think about it, especially towards the middle. I said in my review, I think that the Scream 7 is the worst one. I still think that. I would probably put Scream 3 next up as now the second worst movie of the franchise. Then it gets a little more because there's some that I haven't seen in a long time, especially kind of like once you get into that 4, 5, 6 area, and I've only seen Scream 6, I think, one time. So I would say 7 and 3 are at the bottom. I think the first movie is still the best. And I would say probably Scream 2 for me would be closest to the second spot. And then I would have to look at 4, 5, 6 again in order to really give you a definitive ranking. So it would be probably 1 and 2 at the top in that order, 7 and 3 in the bottom in that order. And then in the middle would be some combination of 4, 5, 6. Off the top of my head, I would probably say maybe 5, 4, 6, but I've only seen 6 once. So, but that's my rough ranking. Boom or Bust says, why are some movies called genre films? That's a good question. I think it's because at a certain point, the selling point for a film becomes the fans of that movie. So, you know, you wouldn't call Oppenheimer a genre film. But I think that genre film is a great way to sort of put things in a box. So, you know, Halloween, you could call a genre film because it's a horror movie. Avengers movies, you could call a genre film because it's a superhero movie. I think people want to categorize things. And also, generally, people want to put the audiences in a box. Okay, that's a genre film. So only young guys are going to like that. That's a genre film. So only comic book movie fans are going to like that. I think that it can be useful at times, but I also think it can be kind of used as almost a dismissive type thing. But generally, I think it's just because people consider some types of movies to be generally similar. All horror movies or slasher movies, you know, are the same. So let's call it a genre film. I think that some movies fit that. And then I think some movies have their own advantages and disadvantages that are sort of disserviced by calling them that. I'm so sorry. Daiji Shinomori just left a super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Boomer Bus says, in your opinion, what background would help a new director the most? Writer, producer, actor, cinematographer, or editor? Giacchino did well with Werewolf by Night. That's a good one. What background would help a new director the most? I would say, if I were going to put those in order, I would say editor, number one, because if you understand the mechanics of putting a film together, then that helps you understand the mechanics of shooting one. You know what you need on set, or certainly you're helped by knowing what you need on set and knowing that you need this insert shot, this pickup, understanding the value of having different takes from actors that are at different, perhaps emotional levels, because that gives you as many options as you can have in the editing room. I think that editor is the most advantageous skill to have as a director, but I'm an editor, so I'm biased. Next, after that, I would say probably, strangely, actor, because I think that actors who understand the craft are able to then relate to their actors a little bit more in the director's chair. So I think that knowing the craft of acting in practice helps you as a director to direct other actors. From there, I think that producer, writer, and cinematographer are pretty equal. I think knowing production, being a producer and knowing how that works as a director maybe helps you understand when you should push for things and when you should understand that there are limitations to what you do. Cinematographer, again, you could have more of a handle on the look of the film and maybe save time that way. And then writer, if you are a writer director, then you can maybe understand the translation of the written word and maybe on the fly what needs to be filmed and maybe what could be changed or edited a little bit. But I think that editing is such a crucial part of the process. Another one from Daijishin Omori. I'm not sure if it's a genre you'd watch, but I hope you get to watch and review Pillion. I'm curious to know what you think. I want to see Pillion. It has not yet played anywhere near me, but I've heard such good things. I know that was another movie, like I Swear, that came out in the UK before it came out here. I very much want to see Pillion. Crimson 00 Phoenix, member, thank you very much, says fry sauce equals ketchup and mayo. Dip your fries in it. Oh, yeah, I think that this was a reference. Somebody asked if I tried fry sauce when I was in Sundance, and I had no idea what it was. And thank you for that. Someone else had pointed that out as well. I did not try fry sauce. Part of it is I don't like mayonnaise. So I don't know if I would try fry sauce because I'm not a mayonnaise fan. Ghostnom X4R says, I've been wondering for a long time, have you ever been told that you look like Pete Docter, the director of Monsters Incorporated, Inc., or Up and Inside Out? Sorry, the director of Monsters, Inc., Up and Inside Out. Also, have you ever thought you look like him? I've never thought that I look like him. Let me just do a quick Google search here. Pete Docter. Okay. Well, he wears big black rim glasses, so I could see that. He's got more hair than I do. Yeah, you put a hat on him. I could see that. I've never actually thought that I did, but yeah, I could see it. Interesting. No, I've never thought that I did, but now that you mention it, yeah, I could see the resemblance. I don't think anybody's ever told me I look like him, but I could definitely see it. Good catch. Pam Ross 10181 says, hi, Dan. Any thoughts on Scary Movie 6? What do you think of the parody genre in general? I saw the trailer for Scary Movie 6. I laughed at a lot of it. I'm curious to know what the main topic of the humor is going to be, because there were two kind of main ones. There was one that was just like silly, goofy parody film, and then there was one that was sort of and I think that one of the Wayans brothers today, I forget which one, in the media said that it was like the anti-cancel culture movie. I'm much more interested in the parody movie. If that's the way that most of the jokes go, then I have a lot more estimates about it. I don't want to hear the 10 years reheated take on the anti-cancel culture thing. I just think it's been done. And the trailer starts out with a pronouns joke. It's like, oh, great. It's like every other podcaster that is on now. So the parody genre in general has generated some of the best comedies of all time and some of the worst comedies of all time. It's all in the execution of the joke. If your joke is just, here's the thing, here, remember Narnia? And that's the joke. And then like, remember Narnia? That's not funny. It's like you just added a fart. Sorry. It's like you just added a fart to a cultural reference. If you can frame that cultural reference inside of something unexpected, that's when it becomes funny, or kind of tweak it. Something that we always tried to aspire to with Honest Trailers was you take something familiar, but then you tweak it, or you point something out, or you twist it in a different way. Then that's exciting and funny. So, I mean, like I liked the new Naked Gun movie a lot, but then like the Scary Movie, Epic Movie things, some of the worst comedies. Not Scary Movie, but like Epic Movie. Date, the first Scary Movie, the first few are good, but Epic Movie and superhero movie and all that are garbage. So it just depends on the execution. If the Oscars changed to a 100-person voting panel and kept the system for nominations, how would you structure that panel? Would you include fans or critics? I mean, I think that would kind of fundamentally change what the Oscars are, because you would go from such a wide swath of opinions to such a narrow swath of opinions. Would I include fans? No, not necessarily. Would I include critics? I mean, I know that the Academy has some critics that are members. I think Leonard Maltin is a member of the Academy, and he deserves to be. How would I structure the panel? I think that you would have to try to provide a cross section of both the professions within the industry, meaning every branch: costume design, cinematography, editing. You want to make sure if you're 100 people deciding the Oscars, that you're looking at it from every angle, but also age, gender, race. I mean, there's so many different things that I think you'd want to ensure were equally represented, that it would just be almost impossible. So I would try, if I had to structure it, I would spend so much time trying to make sure that 100-person panel was representative of every kind of person and type of person that was in the Academy fairly. But that would be tough. That would be difficult. I know the Oscars aren't perfect, but that'd be a tough choice. Art of Chinara says, big fan of the show. Thank you. What do you think is the impact of the second screen directive on the quality of movies and TV compared to 20 years ago? First of all, I like the second screen directive just as like a Jason Bourne or a Star Trek episode, the second screen directive. I assume when you say the impact of the second screen directive, you mean with Netflix saying, hey, people are going to be doing other things while they're watching this, so you have to reiterate and explain things because they're not really paying attention. That's how I understand the second screen directive. I hope I have that right. I mean, I think you can see it. I think that movies are written to they try to dumb movies down. I don't think they're written as well, and I don't like it. I think you shouldn't just, and Netflix has openly said apparently they're trying to do this, you shouldn't adjust your movies for an audience that's paying attention. You should make the audience pay attention to your movies. That's what I think. If you don't have the attention span to pay attention to a good movie, that's not the movie's fault. You shouldn't make the movie worse because you can't put your phone down for an hour or 2 hours or pause the movie and do what you need to do and start it over again. We shouldn't make the movies dumber. We should be trying to make the audiences smarter, or at least more attentive. So I don't like it. I don't think that you should try to bring movies down to a level to be like, well, let's not try to make them good enough to have people pay attention. Let's just explain what's going on in dialogue a million times before, because that ironically makes me not pay attention. Because then I check out, because I'm like, you think that I'm stupid, or you're writing to me like I'm stupid, and I don't appreciate that. Harvsk 4181 says, hey, Dan, but you've at least seen the Star Trek Futurama where no fan has gone before with the original Star Trek actors, right? Right? I haven't. I have not. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Party people up in here. Thank you for the super chat. Says, I watched SJU every day after high school with my mom. Ancient. No, that's very nice. Your new channel helped me through COVID, and here I am running a theater, still enjoying your work. Thank you for being a channel for comfort, info, and entertainment. Thank you for watching and following me across so many different places. It has truly been a journey, and I appreciate it. And you're not the first person that said that they have watched us in high school and are now a full-grown adult. So don't feel bad. Z Strike 026 says, have you checked out Starfleet Academy? I have not. I did not love the trailer. I don't just go by the trailer, but at a time where I have precious few things, I'm trying to catch up on Oscar movies. I'm trying to do a ranked video. I'm running around the country doing all kinds of stuff and everything I do for the channel anyway. I have not watched Starfleet Academy. I probably will at some point though. Josh Volcano says, hi, Dan, do you think Dune or Doomsday will be delayed? No, I don't. I think they just said that Doomsday is just not going to be in IMAX on its opening weekend. So it's going to do fine. That's the thing. Doomsday doesn't need IMAX to do well. You have a little bit of extra money, but I think it's going to do okay. And a lot of people say, do you think that Dune is going to move? No, they already had the IMAX screens. Why would they move? No, I don't think so. And also, people keep in mind, it's the end of the year. So it's also not just driven by the opening weekend. Both of those movies being in release over the holidays, that's where the money's going to be made. And that's one of the few times a year where people have time to go see multiple movies. So, no, I think they're going to stick where they are, and we're going to have a fun little new thing to say, Doomsday, even though I think that that's a little too try hard. Fluffy Pro says, how do you feel about reviewing movies that you might not know about the show, game, or book it's based on? Do you think it stands upbeat its own? Do you worry about the fandom's reactions? Do I worry about the fandom's reactions? Not really. If I'm not familiar with it, then I don't. I certainly hear when people say like, oh, this was a bad version of X or a bad version of Y, but if I don't know the difference, then it doesn't really affect my opinion. No, I don't worry about it. For me, I'm delighted if it's something that I'm not familiar with and I love the movie or book or show. I'm happy that I found this new thing that I enjoy. I didn't know anything about Dune when I saw the the Denis Villeneuve version with Timothée Chalamet. I didn't really know anything about Dune. I'd never read it. I'd never seen the David Lynch movie, and I loved it. And now I've since read a couple of the Dune books, and it's introduced me to this new thing. I think every movie needs to stand on its own. So even if it's something that I love but the movie is completely reliant on that love, I think that needs to be noted. But no, I don't really worry about the fandom's reaction. If fans say, "Hey, I'm a fan of X, and this is a terrible version, and I like the movie," I'll go, "Well, that's interesting," but I just don't agree. Yeah, no, but every movie I think should stand on its own. Yes. Phil Smith 5500 says, "Hi Dan, looking forward to your Oscars predictions. What upset win would you like to see? I'd go for F1 Best Picture just for the backlash it'll cause. I would not like to see that. I would be part of that backlash. I don't want to see that. I would love to see Ethan Hawke win Best Actor. All of the talk has been about Michael B. Jordan and Timothée Chalamet, and I think that there's probably a 95% chance that one of the two of them will win. I love Ethan Hawke. I don't think he's ever really gotten his due, and I think he was fantastic in Blue Moon. So if Ethan Hawke were to upset and win Best Actor, I would be very happy to see that because I think it would be richly deserved, and I think that he would finally be getting his due. Josh Volcano says, biggest lesson you've learned from being on YouTube? Oh, geez, how much time do you have? The biggest lesson I've learned, I would say when I first started doing movie fights, I was hyper reactive to everything that I saw in the comment section or that people said, and I would second guess myself about everything. It's like, oh, well, am I really that, or should I really do that, or well, they say that I'm too aggressive. Like, do I need to tone it down? And I would get in my own head about it. I'd say over the years, what I've learned, and even more so after I have my own channel, is always be receptive to what people are saying, but you can't internalize everything and you can't let it second guess what you're doing. If it's something I'm confident about, if it's something that I like to do, if it's something that I feel like doesn't need to be changed, even if somebody says, I don't like what you do. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's the way I like to do it. But if it's something legitimate, I mean, I get suggestions for charts all the time, and I'm like, that's an interesting idea. Let me try that. I'd say that was my biggest thing, was don't internalize everything and don't let it shake you. But also be open to suggestions. And it takes a while to strike that balance. I'm still working on it, honestly. Before Knowing says, please say hi to my wife, Gemma. Hi, Gemma. Hi, Mrs. Before Knowing. Thank you for watching. If you don't watch, I hope you can forgive your husband for having some random stranger on YouTube shout you out. But hello, Gemma. I hope you're well. I'm fine. How are you? Clay7729 says, hey, Dan, have you been embarrassed asking for a ticket for a movie for whatever reason? I remember going to see the last Harry Potter, but by that time I was grown. I had to put my head down. Not really. I have been kind of shamed a little bit when I went to see Taylor Swift. Because when the Eras Tour movie came out, I didn't know anything really about Taylor Swift. I knew who she was, obviously, because you can't not know. And I'd heard a few of her songs, the big ones, but I wasn't really that deep into her discography. And I'd heard of the Eras tour, and I did the review here on the channel. I went because it was a big cultural moment and I wanted to be a part of it and just kind of observe it. And I ended up really liking the movie and I liked a lot of the music. But when I had my ticket, went to go for them to scan my ticket, the person who was doing the ticket taker thing scanned it and just looks at me and goes, "Really?" I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, like, I understand probably not a lot of guys my age that are going to the Taylor Swift movie, but yeah, first of all, I'm sorry. As a movie theater employee, it is not your role to question anybody's choice in the movie that they're choosing to see. Because honestly, what's to keep me from saying like, yeah, really, you know what? Actually, I would like to I'd like to cancel my ticket, and could I please speak to your supervisor? Not that I have ever done that, but somebody could do that, is what I'm saying. So it's the calculus isn't worth it for me, and also it's like don't judge people for what they choose to see. So I would say no, I haven't really been embarrassed. I would say the weirdest, like kind of awkward experience was when Nick Mundy and I went to go see Gem and the Holograms on opening weekend to review it on our at that time Screen Junkies Plus show Monday Night Raw, and it was an almost empty theater because it had one of the worst openings of all time for a movie of its size. So it was me and Nick Mundy and like 6 or 7 other people who were all like younger than us. A lot of like dads bringing their teenage daughters, and we definitely got some weird looks. The two of us alone at this movie. But no, I'm not ashamed of it. Like I first of all, as a critic, I see stuff all the time that may not be my target demographic. And secondly, if I want to see it, I don't care. I don't care if I'm not the target audience. It doesn't matter to me. Don't be ashamed of what you love. Never. Josh Volcano says, I'm in the season finale of The Pit, day player. Whoa. All right, everybody. Look for Josh Volcano in the finale of The Pit. We're a few weeks away. I'm going to take a picture of that. If that's really you, I'll try to look for you in the background. All right, we're down to our last couple questions here, and then I'll try to go through and flag some from the actual comment section. Hey, Omar Tapia says, "Hi Dan, glad to catch you live. We're getting a selection of Sundance films here in Mexico. Which one do you recommend I try to watch the most?" Leviticus. I don't know I just saw Neon's putting out here in June. But that was one of my favorites. I don't know which ones you're getting. Tuner, I think you'll probably get that in Mexico because that's already got distribution. But Tuner is one that's really, really good. We'll see what happens with Josephine. And The Invite is one that if you get it down there, I would also recommend. But yeah, I hope you're getting all those because those were all standouts for me. Andrew Abraham, 7455. It's the last one for now. Says, lots of talk about AI taking jobs in Hollywood. Do you think editor is a role that could be replaced? What's lost if we get rid of human editors? Do I think that editing is a role that could be replaced by AI? Yes, absolutely it can. There are already tools that are in place to help editors, text-based editing and stuff like that, that could be developed to replace human beings. And there's nothing stopping somebody from feeding a computer a bunch of movies and saying, edit this footage into a movie like this. And I'm sure the computer could do it. What's lost when we get rid of human editors? Humanity. I would like to see a computer calculate the amount of time that the camera should hold on Al Pacino's face in The Godfather while the train is passing by before spoiler alert, as we learn, before he does what he does in The Godfather, or what take to use. I would like for a computer, show me the program in a computer that can look at 4 different takes from an actor and tell me which one is most consistent with what they've done previously in the movie, which one would resonate the most with an audience of other human beings, which one has the subtlety that the director is looking for, which one has layers and levels of nuance to it, something that you don't understand at the time, but you'll pick up 30 minutes later. Show me a computer program that can do that, and then I'll start worrying about human editors getting replaced by AI in a way that doesn't reproduce anything but empty, digitally, algorithmically manipulated. I'm not going to say slop. That word's overused. Like I said, you could generate a movie. There are so many things that a human eye can detect, especially in the editing room, that a computer just can't do. you lose that. You lose humanity is what you lose. If you replace a person, an editor, an actual editor with a computer, you lose humanity. And you lose somebody who can recognize in another human being what real emotional consistency looks like. So, could it happen? Yes, but that's what you lose. You lose what makes movies special. Then it just becomes junk. Josh Volcano says, "Do you review Christian movies? Sound of Freedom a few years ago was kind of an interesting situation. Also, my name is Volcano, not Volcano." Well, I was saying, to be fair, I was saying volcano, not volcano. Um, sorry, it was spelled like volcano. Josh Volcano. Okay, I understand. My name is mispronounced all the time. My apologies. Josh Volcano. Leviosa, not Leviosa. Do I review Christian movies? Mm, I don't intentionally not review them, but I can't think of a lot that I have. Um, so not a whole lot. I did see Sound of Freedom, and I covered, box office wise on my channel. I talked about it, but yeah, I know I don't review a lot, but not out of like intentionally being like I'm not reviewing that. It's just that I don't review every single movie. So yeah. And Call Me Lady O says, "Hi, Dan. Thank you for your very thoughtful approach on the BAFTA situation. You were fair and balanced as always. If your life was made into a movie, who would you want to play you?" Ooh, that's interesting. I don't know, because I feel like it would be egotistical for me to say like somebody who's just like super cool and super awesome. Like who would be age appropriate? Who could capture the essence of me? I don't know. Trying to think. They have to either be somebody who would be willing to shave their head or already doesn't have hair, but also wouldn't mind wearing a hat for everything. Who would I want to play me? It also have to be somebody like it would it be me as a teenager or like me now? That's the question. Hmm. I don't know. Maybe like Aaron Paul? Maybe? I don't know. I think he's maybe a little too intense even for me. Like who's kind of like an aw shucks guy that's you could buy as just like a movie YouTuber. I don't know. That's a really good question. I've never thought about who I want to play me in a movie that I can remember at least. Hmm. Let me think about it. If a better answer than Aaron Paul pops into my head, I'll let you know. Harvsk 4181 says, "What is a popular food in Arkansas that you like?" There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of food that's particular everywhere. When you get into the South, though, barbecue becomes very important, and there are different kinds of barbecue. There is Texas style barbecue, which is kind of its own thing. There's Memphis style barbecue. Now, Memphis style barbecue is good, but there's no sauce. It's all about the rubs. And while I appreciate the rubs, I'm a sauce guy. So I've had Memphis style barbecue that I've enjoyed, but it's not my favorite. There's Carolina style barbecue. Now, Carolina style barbecue is interesting because the sauces there are often very vinegar and mustard based. And again, I respect that people enjoy it, but that's not really my particular preference. What I like here, and I'm glad that I live here in Northwest Arkansas because we're even closer. Barbecue is a very specific thing, I think, to this region. They have it everywhere else, but it's taken very seriously here in Arkansas and elsewhere. I enjoy Kansas City style barbecue. It is very sauce reliant, and the sauce is the exact kind of sauce that I like. It is a little bit more molasses based. You still have vinegar, but less mustard based. And I love almost every type of every different Kansas City style restaurant I've gone to. I've really enjoyed. So I would say barbecue is very important here in the South and also going up into the Midwest. And like Texas barbecue is its own thing. But I would say that barbecue is a food that I very much enjoy, and specifically Kansas City style barbecue is my favorite. Let's see. Amar Akhtar one says, "Hey, hope you're well." Thank you, Amar. I appreciate that. Let me just try to piece through a couple of the comments here. And if you have a question, send it in now because we're getting in the show in a few minutes. Let's see. Confirmed. Dan is a KC masterpiece person. Yeah, I mean, I like Kansas City barbecue. Jason Mewes. Okay, interesting to play me in a movie. I could see that. Let's see. Thank you for everything you do. Love the channel. I lost my mom a few years ago, and watching your show helps me stay connected to her and the love we both have for movies. Thank you for saying that. It's my imposter syndrome kicks in when I try to consider the fact that I what I do is meaningful in that way to people, but it very much makes me it kind of helps me put things in perspective when I hear stuff like that. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry about the loss of your mom, but I'm glad that I could play some part in helping you get through that. So thank you very much. Before knowing, John Malkovich is Dan Murrell. Yeah, older me, sure, I could do that. Jamie Demetriou, I'm not sure if I know that. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, man, I don't know. Yeah, I could maybe see that. JGL, I could see that. David Cross, maybe. I mean, that's just another bald guy. Let's see. Carolina style vinegar base. Yeah. Listen, a lot of people love Carolina style barbecue. I get it. It's just not my favorite. Paul Rudd to play me. Okay. I could see Paul Rudd. I could see that happening. Sam Rockwell. I would be flattered if Sam Rockwell played me. Let's see. Pete, there we go. Pete Doctor should play me. Let's bring it full circle. Pete Doctor, Nicholas Holt. Please, are you kidding me? That'd be an upgrade in so many different ways for me. Bob Hoskins, older than me, also just kind of a bald guy and dead. But I love Eddie Valiant, so I could see that. Andrew Garfield as me. Okay. All right. All right. I could maybe see that. Let's see. I'm just going to see if there's anything else that I want to do really quick. Years ago, I'd get embarrassed when a film had a foreign title that was difficult to pronounce. The local arty cinema used to take glee in feigning they didn't know what film I was talking about. Okay, Phil Smith. That annoys me almost as much as people who are just kind of, crappy about movies. Is the movie fan, the gatekeepers, the movie fans that are like, oh, you don't know the Spanish title of Like Water for Chocolate. Ugh. Oh, you want to see? Do you mean Chocolat? Is that the movie you're talking about? Chocolat? Like, shut up. Somebody is coming to your first of all, if you're an art house movie theater employee, you should be thankful for every person that walks in that door, because you know how hard it is to get people to go see independent films, international films in general. And there are those people out there that are like, oh, I'm sorry, you haven't seen the entire filmography of Jacques Tati in the original French without subtitles. Well, then you obviously can't appreciate his work. Shut up. I'm a cinephile. I take movies as seriously as anybody else, but I hate the people that think that their level and version of loving movies is the only valid one. And they're so much better than everybody else because they've seen or heard of this obscure movie that you haven't. It's the comic book guy syndrome of movie fans. And you find them everywhere. They work in video stores, they work at movie theaters. They should be embarrassed, Phil. They should be embarrassed for treating you like that, because they should be thanking you for having that enthusiasm for international film. You shouldn't have been embarrassed. They should be embarrassed. And you can send me a message on Instagram if they're still at those theaters, and I'll go and yell at them myself, because that drives me crazy. As a film lover, you should be encouraging the love of movies in other people. You shouldn't be trying to use your love of film to intimidate other people and treat them as less than, because maybe they don't know quite as much about movies as you do. It's ridiculous. And you don't really love movies if that's the way you act. You just have a stupid superiority syndrome. You got me going now. You got me going on Dan rant, Phil. And it's not your fault. It's their fault. Yeah. Nick Mishlak says, I've been editing AI since I was in high school 30 years ago. I wouldn't hand off that job at any AI. I agree with you. I wouldn't either. Let's see. Let's look at one more here in the chat. That's another one from Phil. Seeing your reaction to the F1 suggestion was fun. I agree about Ethan Hawke. He's been so good for so long and was excellent in Blue Moon. I agree with that. Let me find one from somebody I haven't highlighted yet here. Let's see. Find a good one. Datboy22 says, not sure if this is already the case, but I think people who win an Oscar and aren't already a member of the Academy should automatically get in. I believe that is the case. I think if you win an Academy Award, you are invited to become a member of the Academy. I'm almost positive that that's the case. So that is one rule that I like. All right, I think we got a couple more things that came in, and then we will wrap up the show. Britton C says, I believe Crash deserved to win Best Picture, and I'm willing to die on that hill. Well, you will have a lot of people coming at you on that hill, including me, my friend. But like I said, it's not my job here to diminish your love of film. I just very much disagree with your opinion. What unpopular opinion in film will you die on the hill for? I mean, I've been fighting the gladiator battle for 26 years, which is just, I don't really think the movie's that great. I mean, I understand people disagree with me, and I have fought that battle many times. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. It's got some really good parts, but I don't think the movie's really that good. I mean, it's not bad. I just don't think it's great. And I'm not afraid to say it. I have fought. I have been on the hill. I've been on Gladiator Hill for 26 years now. So, it's not like I'm going to fall on my sword, but that's one where I'm just like, I have not backed down from that opinion in 26 years, and I don't plan to. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I'm like totally against the grain on. Yeah, that's the big one that I still get pushback on, is the whole gladiator thing. Mr. Movie Obsession says Tom Cruise will play Dan Murrell. I listen, I am not, I'm not, you couldn't even draw inspiration from any part of my life to inspire a Tom Cruise performance. I can't run for more than, well, it's an embarrassing, I'm better than I used to be, but it would be a complete fabrication because I can't run and I certainly can't do those kinds of stunts. MJ Hater 1985 says, I hope you find love again. Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope so too. Appreciate that. Brandon Alcorn 5046 says, hi, Dan. I've been a huge fan of yours for years. Your movie knowledge is second to none. Thank you. I think there's a lot of people that can compete with me. Do you think Chalamet is going to win the Oscar? Well, I don't want to give away my Oscar pick because I'm actually still making them. And I think that might tip my hand if I said yes or no. I will say that I was a lot more confident that he was going to win before the SAG Awards. And the fact that Michael B. Jordan won the SAG Award has really caused me to rethink my position. And I haven't actually made up my mind yet. The big thing that I think is kind of unique, and it takes us back to the BAFTAs and the non-terrible things about I Swear and everything that happened there, is because I Swear was at the BAFTAs and won the Best Actor prize, that really kind of muddied up the water Oscar-wise, because you had a movie that was not in Oscar contention at all win that prize. And so it basically disqualified the BAFTA I think it disqualified the BAFTA as a meaningful look at which way the Academy might go. So Michael B. Jordan winning, I think, took a muddy situation and made it even murkier, because now it's like, well, we don't even have the BAFTA to go back on. We've got Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, but they weren't in the same category. I would say I'm a lot less sure of it than I was a few days ago. And for a while, I was sure that he was my pick for the Academy Award. Now I am not so sure. Jimac 566 says, Mrs. Before Knowing here, I'm a viewer. We enjoy watching your film reviews after we've seen a film. Please say hi to my husband, Joe. Hello, Joe. Hello, Mr. Jimac 566. I love these things. Hashtag couple goals. You two are great. I appreciate that you watched the show and that he didn't just pull you into like hey, I got this YouTuber to say your name, and you're like trying to do other stuff, like cooler stuff. Like, I don't care. I'm glad that you both enjoy the channel and that you both watch. Thank you. I'm glad I could be a source of entertainment for you both. This will be the last question, so please don't send any more in because it's about time to wrap up the show. Mr. Movie Obsession says, I will not tolerate gladiator slander. Well, you're going to have to. Sorry, because that's just how it is. I was partially entertained, but not as entertained as everybody else was. All right. As always, a great series of questions. And I feel like we had a bit of everything on this show. We had some serious talk. We had some fun movie fights talk. We had some great questions, a couple Dan rants, all kinds of stuff. Really, I couldn't ask for a more complete live stream. Thank you to everybody that watched. I really appreciate it. I will be back with another live stream next week, unless something gets in the way. I try to, if it's a last minute cancellation, be sure to tell everybody that I'm not going to be able to do the show. So stay tuned. I'll be here next week to talk about the lead up to the Academy Awards, what's going to go on with that, any of the big news that might have broken, and all of that stuff. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to everybody that sent in a question. Thank you to Mando and to Harry's for sponsoring this video. Check out more from them in the description below. And I'll see you soon. All right, everybody. Bye.